somehow it was like you came out of that game going, wow, they're building something here, and the culture and this and that just turned right back into everything that the Jets are, just getting their ass kicked on their home field in front of their fans by a team that's better within the division, and the game being over before it started. So, I mean, this is why I was, at least, and I was dead wrong about a lot of things this week, but I was saying that, you still lost to the Pittsburgh Steelers in week 1, and Aaron Rodgers threw 4 touchdown passes and stood behind that podium and rubbed it in your face, but somehow you're taking positives out of this game?
Yeah.
And then the whole, I love Aaron Glenn and the accountability, and they're cutting the guy who fumbled. Like, does any of that crap matter? Honestly. Because when you come out with that type of performance, then, I mean, I'm looking at Aaron Glenn thinking he has no idea what the hell he's doing.
Well, again, it's 2 weeks in. And again, like I'm just telling you that he went through this with Dan Campbell, and they were 0-11. We all saw that on Hard Knocks and watching, what Jared Goff went through that first year. And, of course, Matthew Stafford goes on to win the Super Bowl. I mean, it was just miserable. And I'm sure it takes a while for, people to really for a coach and a general manager that are new. It's 2 games in. They got to get the feel for what's going on, coaching staff-wise, player-wise. And unfortunately, to me anyway, when I see this and I saw the erratic play from Justin Fields for 3 quarters, that's the Justin Fields that unfortunately got benched in Pittsburgh last year. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's also the Justin Fields that struggled mightily in Chicago. Some of it his fault, some not of his fault. But there is a player in there that you can win with, as we saw in week 1, if everything around him is solid. And they couldn't run the ball for crap yesterday. The defensive line of the Buffalo Bills absolutely manhandled the offensive line of the Jets. And when you put up numbers like this, I always wonder, we laugh about StatPack. Some of the stuff that I look at in StatPack, I want to see if I actually had a hand in it when I played.
Yeah.
So when I see that the Jets only had 54 pass yards, this is the lowest amount of pass yards in a home game since 2014. I'm thankful, but my name's not on there.
Yes.
You know what I mean? But this was about as poor an offensive performance as you could have expected, especially after what happened to Buffalo last week against one of the best teams in the league in the Ravens.
And we're talking about back-to-back performances by the defense that were putrid as well. So, and I understand that, Dan Campbell gets a lot of credit, and the Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson got a lot of credit, but I also look back at some of these teams, especially the ones that have had continued success in the league, and a lot of it has to do with hitting on draft picks. Now, I know that there has to be a development there, but the Eagles and the Lions have been the 2 best teams at hitting on draft picks, especially in the NFC over the last 4 or 5 years. And building a roster is really the key to turning things around. So bottom line is the Jets don't have enough good players.
If I remember correctly, I want to say in Dan Campbell's first year that they had a draft. That was the draft year where the Bengals could have taken Jamar Chase or Penei Sewell.
Yeah, it was 2021, and it was Penei Sewell.
Penei Sewell. So the Bengals took Jamar Chase, of course, and that worked out really good for them. And Penei Sewell fell to the Lions, and that was Aiden Hutchinson, Penei Sewell, we're building the line. The Jets did that this year with Armand Membu.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's the hope, is that he's going to become their Penei Sewell. They took Justin Fields. Okay, so they're stuck again at quarterback.
Yeah, but
the
Lions took Jared Goff, and I understand that he went to a Super Bowl, but everybody at that point was like, Jared Goff's a system guy, Sean McVay, and not good enough.
Yeah, okay, system guy. And you want to put him in the right system, and he's going to put up big numbers. And yesterday, 5 touchdowns with his old offensive coordinator standing on the sideline watching him slice and dice their defense.
Yeah, which was, I'm sure, satisfying for him in many ways. But, it was sort of like the same thing. It's not like when the Lions got Jared Goff and traded away Matthew Stafford that everybody was thrilled about Jared Goff. It was probably the same type of reaction that Jets fans had when they got Justin Fields.
I'm just telling you right now that the Jets quarterback has been unsettled for 10 straight years.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, whether it be draft picks that don't live up to the billing and have to go move on, or whether it be injuries with Aaron Rodgers, and now Justin Fields is the next guy. And I think, he was in the eyes of Aaron Glenn, a dual threat quarterback that if he wasn't going to be throwing the ball well, he would be a nice complement with the running game. And he may still be, and I think he still will have games where you're going to be really happy with his performance. And then there are going to be days like yesterday. This was probably the worst he played, in the NFL. This is probably his worst game, and he probably feels that today. And I don't want to kill him today too much because he's dealing with a concussion. Hopefully it's a minor one and he can get back out on the field as quickly as possible because he needs to play more. But I would just say that the Buffalo Bills came in here and just absolutely completely dismantled this team. I think the big problem for this team right now is his defense. And Steve Wilkes, he was the defense coordinator for the 49ers for 1 year.
Yep, and they got rid of him.
See ya.
Yep.
I don't know why. I don't know what it is. But to me, that's got to be looked at, and that's where Aaron Glenn comes from. He comes from that side of the ball, so he's got to be involved, and he's got to get that defense better because they're going to have a chance to win any of these games. Their best players on defense have to show up more consistently.
Yeah, and I'm sure that he got more involved after. I'm sure he's been involved, and I'm sure he got even more involved after what happened against the Steelers. But the fact that they even looked worse this week than they did the previous week. I understand. They've got a decent amount of talent. They shouldn't be this bad. But maybe some of these guys that we just have been talking about for so long are just overrating. Maybe they're just not that good.
Well, Garrett Wilson is really good, but if you don't get him the ball, he can't do anything.
Yeah.
He's just out there running plays. Just like,
right.
Hey, I'm over here. I'm over there.
Right.
There isn't really a complimentary top-end second wide receiver for the Jets. And again, if they end up like we think they're going to end up, they're going to have a top 5 draft pick.
Again.
And that's where they'll have to make the decision. Do they go with another young quarterback, or do they find a defensive pass rusher, or is there another offensive lineman? Or another wide receiver. Where we're going to be next April.
Let's go to Pete in Old Bridge. What's going on, Pete?
Hey, guys. How are you?
Good, man. What's up?
Nothing. Just wanted to say it's nice to talk to you guys. I've been listening for a while now. Got a couple points I want to make about the Jets. Kind of feeding off what you started with. You woke up and they just played like the same old Jets. Disappointed with the way Sauce plays. I want to know if you guys still believe in Aaron Glenn. Kind of sounds like Boomer does. You not so much. And you can't cut the guy, but do you bench Michael Clemens? I want to know what you guys think.
Yeah, it's funny. We talked a little bit about that off the air. Just first off, still believe in Aaron Glenn. I didn't like the hire to begin with. It doesn't mean I'm not going to give him a chance. Doesn't mean that I think that he's never going to have success, but I never really believed he was the right guy. At this point in the Jets franchise history, I wanted someone that had real experience instead of someone who wanted to be Bill Parcells, bring in someone who actually had that type of resume. And they decided to go with a first-time head coach, defensive coordinator again and do this all over again. As far as Clemens goes, you turn to me in the break and go, well, do they cut Clemens now?
Yeah, they're not going to cut him, but they're going to, he's another one, much like Hudson yesterday. He plays a game, he's on edge, and sometimes that edge ends up leading to penalties. And it's just a really frustrating part of playing with a guy that plays with that type of intensity.
Well, it's also what Aaron Glenn, it's like a fine line because Aaron Glenn wants these guys to love football and play aggressive and leave it all out there. And then when they're in that mindset, sometimes it's tough to fine-tune that.
Who had the same problem was James Harrison when he first played.
Oh, my God,
You ask Bill Cowher about him,
Oof.
He'll tell you, man, it was like...
It was a fine every week.
Exactly. And Vontez Burfict for the Bengals. There's the league is littered with guys that play really on the edge. And then it's when you finally get that player to understand what the situation is. And I'm not saying every time Michael Clemens gets a flag thrown on him, he deserves it. Sometimes it's because of his reputation. And I'm sure other coaches before games talk to the officials, hey, watch this guy, watch that guy. We've seen this guy on film do these different things, and the officials are human beings, and they get reminded, and then all of a sudden the flag comes out.
Let's go to Mario and Howell. What's going on, Mario?
Hey, guys, good morning. Gio, I could not agree with you more. This all comes down to, in my opinion, ownership, and it's Woody. And it's always been Woody. I was telling Al, if you, God forbid, you or a loved one was diagnosed with a terminal condition, you're going to research and you're going to find the doctors and the specialists who have experience in treating whatever that condition is. You're not going to reach out and go to a first-time, doctor, straight out of medical school to treat the condition. This is an organization that is riddled with rigor mortis. How this guy, Woody, constantly, every time there's a new hire for both head coach and general manager, he goes with a first-time, candidate. And it just doesn't work. It doesn't work. They need somebody in here that wants to take that task of turning the organization around. I don't know who's out there. I agree with you. It's no knock, no indictment on Aaron Glenn. But the chances of a first-time head coach succeeding here, it doesn't work. It just doesn't work.
Well, especially for someone who has no – but here's the difference between Aaron Glenn, and I'm with you, Mario. I've obviously agreed. At least Aaron Glenn knows this organization and has been here at their worst and been here at their best. So that was one thing I always used to talk about. It's not like someone like Rob Saleh who parachutes out of the sky and then all of a sudden is a Jets head coach and goes, what the F did I just get myself into? But I was preaching experience for the longest time. And I know at some point John Gruden's going to get another job at some point. And then somebody, and if he coaches well, then there's going to be a bunch of franchises that said, well, we're dummies. We should have been on top of this first. That was the guy I was screaming about, or just somebody who has been there before. I mean, to have another learn on the job wasted season. It's like, my God.
But guys, everybody's got to relax. It's 2 weeks into it.
Yeah, but they're not going to be any good. You know that.
Well, we knew that going into the season, that it was going to be a struggle, especially offensively. Now, they may have played their best offensive game in week one. I don't know. They'll play some pretty poor defenses. They're going to play the Dolphins twice. They'll have opportunities to have big games. Breece Hall will have an opportunity. I mean, there's going to be situations where they'll be able to play well, and it's the longness of the NFL season. But first of all, you and I talked incessantly for months about what we thought the Jets should have done. Mm-hmm. So the Jets went down this road, and a lot of this has to do with Bill Parcells. Remember that. A lot of this has to do with Bill Parcells. And Bill Parcells really felt like this guy would be the right guy for the Jets because Aaron understands the Jets. He understands what he's dealing with. I'm disappointed in their offensive performance for sure yesterday. No question. I'm more disappointed in their defense over the first 2 weeks because I think that Justin Fields he's going to be an erratic player that he has been.
Yeah, but I mean, think about when Bill Parcells got to the Jets, what type of coach he was at that point. Now, you want to say, hey, when we got to the Giants, he didn't have that resume and he built it up from there. But the Jets and the Giants are just completely different organizations.
But that's what it took for the Jets. They needed Parcells' attitude, just like they needed Rex Ryan's attitude.
Yeah.
Like those people, those two guys are just special coaches for the way they are and how egotistical, maniacs. They were maniacs when they were coaches.
Yeah.
Which is what you have to be in the NFL. It's got to be a no holds barred. And I think Aaron Glenn has that in him. And he's trying to get it right, but it's not going to happen overnight. It's just not.
No. But, I mean, we've talked about how things look. And, yeah, the offense looked great week one, defense terrible, and then they get blown out and their asses handed to them at home again. So it's like, give me a little something, something to be proud of. Remember that whole Aaron Glenn thing? I want to give the fans to be proud of. What's proud? What are you proud of from yesterday?
Nothing. And by the way, they headed off 2 players at the pass. And those 2 players happen to be Sauce Gardner and Garrett Wilson. They gave them contracts before they had to give them contracts. Mm-hmm. And the reason they gave them those contracts is because they didn't want them bitching and complaining about leaving next year. They knew it was going to be a tough year. Let's take care of these guys early. We know they're great players. We're going to pay them. Therefore, we're going to pay for their silence. In other words, we're going to pay for their support.
Yeah.
They're going to be here. They're not going anywhere, and they're not going to complain. They're going to support their head coach. And that's one of the reasons why they did what they did. And, Aaron's got to have time. You can't expect, especially, which is really disappointing after that first week, offensively how well they played to come out and play one of the worst offensive games a Jet team has played in years.
Let's go to Joe in Oceanside. What's going on, Joe?
I think maybe it's time for the Giants. I mean, they got rid of Feliciano, who was a beast from Frisco.
Hey, your phone's terrible. I think Joe's point was every guy who leaves the Giants feels like is having success somewhere else. There's definitely a handful of those.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, Daniel Jones so far, 2 weeks. Obviously, Saquon, but we knew how talented he was. Xavier McKinney goes to the Packers last year, is in the Defensive Player of the Year discussion. I mean, those are not good things if you are someone who's making decisions at the top of the organization, whether or not to keep a general manager and a head coach. All right, one more before the break. Robert in Spotswood. What's going on, Robert?
Hey, guys. Good morning. Thanks for taking the call. Listen,
Yes,
I just went on a rant with Al a little bit. Guys, it's week 2. Listen, I'm a third-generation season ticket holder. I left at halftime yesterday. In 15 years, I've never, ever done that. With the sun bearing on us, as hot as it was, I knew it wasn't going anywhere. But to call for this guy's head already, come on. It's
No one's calling for his head.
Well,
hold on. Stop. Yes, we are. There's a lot out there who are already calling, is he the right guy for the job? Is he ready for this? It's week 2. Listen, Steve Wilkes' defense, let's face it, the last 2 games is terrible. Absolutely terrible. That's why the 49ers got rid of this guy. I think Aaron Glenn needs to start there. There is where we need to start. We made Sherwood our captain. We made the other guy, Marcinio Ball, the captain. I watched them guys yesterday. We couldn't even cover a tight end. It's the same thing. So I believe we start with this, just my opinion. We need to start somewhere, and it needs to start on the defensive side of the ball. Let's start there, because on offense, we got playmakers. Let's start on the defense side of the ball. Enough with already getting rid of this guy and all this stuff. It's only
Robert, but listen, anybody who is sane understands that Aaron Glenn's going to get a couple of years at the very least. So, if you're reacting to people that are saying fire him now, it's just a waste of breath.
And that's just, I think it's just a direct reaction from yesterday's game. And Buffalo is one of the preseason favorites to go to the Super Bowl out of the AFC. Remember that.
Yeah, and it's if a Jet fan isn't questioning if this is the right guy, then that person is probably, a zombie, because this is what Jet fans do. They want to know, is this the right guy? They want to know, is this the right quarterback? I've been through hell and back. If you're just a fan who's just kind of running around trying to look at things positively or not getting affected by this, then you just don't care as much, which is fine. And
you want to know something? This is where you really find out about your head coach. This is where you really find out about your players.
Yeah.
That's a big part of playing and being successful in the NFL is fighting through these times and keeping your players focused and concentrating on their jobs and not getting caught up in social media, not getting caught up in your family members telling you how much this guy sucks or this guy stinks and you're the greatest. What are you doing here? You need to go play somewhere else so you can win a championship. That's where the coach has really got to bear down, and he's got to be frank with his players. He's got to be transparent with his players. And sometimes, I don't think it's gotten to this point yet with the defense, but there's going to be a point in time where they're going to pull out the tape.
Jeez.
And when they pull out the tape and they have everybody in that room together and they start pointing out, like, what kind of effort is this? What kind of effort is that? What are we doing here? What are you doing there? And that kind of thing, starts to wake up people a little bit. So hopefully they're not at that point yet. Hopefully they're still trying to adjust to each other because it is 2 games, 2 top-end quarterbacks they played. And one game was a good game, and the next game was just an absolute, complete, and utter disaster as they get wiped out by the Bills yesterday.
I was thinking about after the show today going over to Florham Park and taking a note that says Steve Wilkes sucks and putting it under a stone. Because Aaron Glenn said no stone's going to be left unturned. So at some point he'll get to it and he'll open it up and go, Steve Wilkes sucks. Well, maybe that's the problem. I hired this guy because he had experience. But really, he's got experience in 7 million places because he never sticks around very long to do anything good. So maybe that the one thing I'll agree with that last caller with is take a look there right now before it gets too late.
You know what Woody Johnson should do? He should stand on the sideline with a headset and a clipboard, kind of like what's going on in Indianapolis.
Oh, my goodness. Boomer and Gio on the Fan and CBS Sports Network. Jets fans would love that.